I'd say this one's a little too small. Let's try this one. A little bit. Not bad. I got one more. My ears are the only thing keeping this above my eyes. This is actually a Stetson. I've gone into Doctor Who territory with the Stetson. Stetsons are cool. Stetsons are cool. Okay, so that was a minute and a half of me trying on funny hats. So this is going to be my review of Toy Story 2, which came out in 1999. It is the third Pixar movie. And in all honesty, the development of this movie started like a month after the first one was released. So, you know, in that time they also made A Bug's Life and everything. And there's actually a whole story that goes into kind of the making of Toy Story 2, which I will go into at the end of the movie, or at the end of the video, when I kind of talk about the development of the story and just kind of the production of it. So I pulled out my cowboy hats because several characters in this movie obviously wear cowboy hats. You got Woody, you got Jesse, you got, you know, Andy wears his cowboy hat for a while, of course, throughout the course of the movie. So, you know, I figured I'd pull out my cowboy hats that I have. Why I have 4, I don't know. This one here, I have had for 19 going on 20 years. I got that from a rodeo that my future brother-in-law took my sister and I to when they were first dating. So I got that hat. So that was a long time ago, and they're married and they have 3 kids. I actually, at one point when I was in high school, I took one of the, you know, various, you know, Photoshop editing photo classes. And one of the things that we had to do was we had to do this project where we had to make one image shift into another image. And I shifted a cowboy hat into a wedding ring. So it's like, you know, you slowly do like frame by frame as you like manipulate, you know, the lines on it to turn slower into like the other object. I have no idea where that is anymore. That has been long since lost. That's been like 15 years ago at this point in time. 14, 15 years ago at this point in time I would have had any idea where that was. I have no idea anymore. As I said, this is going to be about Toy Story 2. So, Toy Story 2 begins, I would say, about a year and a half after the first one. After the first one ends or so, because it is a little time frame in there, because like, you know, Buzz and Woody are still like, you know, they become closer friends. In that time frame, like Molly, you know, Andy's little sister, has gotten bigger. In that time frame also, we've seen that Andy got his puppy, of course. Buster is the name of the puppy, and he's been around for a while. The opening of the movie is actually, we get to see Buzz Lightyear on an adventure in outer space, and he's like running around and dealing with like Zurg bots and everything like that, and like getting attacked by Zurg. And then we cut away and we find out that, oh, it's just a video game that Rex is playing. And Rex is just sad of the fact that like he really really likes the video game, but he can never win because like his arms are too short to hit both sides of the controller at the same time. Which is just funny. And like, Buzz is there watching him play and everything. And of course, at this point in time, Buzz is way over the whole thing of just like, I'm actually a toy. I'm not really Buzz Lightyear, or I'm not like the actual Buzz Lightyear. I'm just a toy, and everything. So we get like that fun side of that. And we find out that Andy is getting ready to go to cowboy camp, and Woody has been looking around to try to find his, cowboy hat to go with Andy. And, Buzz is going to be kind of left in charge of the room while, Woody's away and, like, doing various maintenance on the toys. Everybody needs to have their batteries changed. There's like, remember to go to the, make sure everybody attends the seminar about, like, what happens if a piece of you is swallowed. I'm assuming that applies more to, like, Molly than anything, and Molly gets a hold of one of them. So we see that, and, like, Woody's just very nervous, and, they find his hat. And then we see Buster, who is, of course, the family's dog. I think he's a dachshund, if I remember correctly. And he's adorable because, most puppies are adorable. And he really, really likes Woody. And, like, they play and everything like that. Like, Woody's, like, trained him and everything to do tricks. And in this time frame, of course, like, we learn that, of course, at the previous Christmas or however long it was, at the end of the first movie, we know that, Andy got a Mrs. Potato Head doll, so that, Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head are happy together and everything. So they get along great, which is just funny to watch them. And of course we see, Woody and Bo are of course still flirting, of course, and, but, Woody puts a lot of trust in Buzz in regards to, keeping an eye on the room and everything. So we see a lot of that stuff. And like we see all the, everybody else is still there. Ham, Slinky, Mr. Potato Head, Rex, of course, pretty much everybody else is there. I think we still see like the army men, a few other things, that are of course still in the room, that are, all of Andy's toys and everything. And what we also end up seeing is, Andy comes in and, he's got like 5 minutes before departure. So he ends up like playing, with all the toys again and everything like that really quickly. And unfortunately, in the process of this, Woody's arm, unfortunately, part of his shoulder seam gets, pop the seam, starts to rip. And Woody, of course, gets very, very sad about this. And, Andy gets very sad about this too. And he's like, well, Andy's mom's like, well, maybe we can try to fix him on the way there. And he's like, no, I don't want him to end up getting any more ripped while I'm away, while I'm at camp. So I'll just leave him here for now. And she like puts Woody up on top of like this shelf full of like toys that like Andy doesn't play with anymore that are broken. And like, so Woody gets left behind, and then Andy heads off to go to, go to cowboy camp. And what we end up seeing is, of course, while Woody's up there, he ends up talking to this other toy up there that is Wheezy, this squeaky penguin, which I don't have any penguins, unfortunately. Otherwise, I possibly would have grabbed it, but I have no stuffed penguins. I have no... Well, I might have a stuffed Piplup in my room, but I don't remember, and I don't want to dig it out right now, just for the purposes of having a penguin. But squeaky toy that no longer squeaks, and like he's been up there for a while. And so we see Woody and him are talking, of course. And then that night Woody has a nightmare where he ends up dreaming about Andy coming home, and then Andy like seeing him and remembering that he's broken. And then, like, being like, I don't want to play with you anymore. And, like, throwing Woody in the trash. And Woody, of course, has this big nightmare, as I said. And he's just, so scared about the fact that he thinks that, because he got ripped, that Andy's going to throw him away, or that he's going to get gotten rid of. Which, with the way that Andy loves his toys, it's not going to happen. And, what we see is, Woody, then, that day we see that, Andy's mom is having a yard sale. And, he like warns the room that there's a yard sale coming. And so it's like everybody's like scattering and like hiding so she can't find them. Or it's just like only the actually broken toys and stuff like that are getting taken. And she like very deliberately, of course, does not take Woody, but she takes Wheezy. And then, of course, Wheezy is like, Woody is like on this rescue mission. He, gets Buster, and like he rides Buster down to like the yard to get Wheezy out of there. And unfortunately, during the process, like all the rest of the toys are like watching from Andy's window as they watch down at like Woody and Buster trying to save Wheezy. And unfortunately, Woody ends up getting left behind, and he ends up getting found by this guy called Al, who's, of course, if you've seen the movie, of course, he's Al from Al's Toy Barn, he's this obsessive, greedy toy collector, and he's the one that owns Al's Toy Barn and everything that we saw a commercial for earlier in the movie. Um, and what he ends up doing is he sees Woody and he tries to pass just getting Woody off as like a piece of junk, and like Andy's mom's like no, she grabs Woody and like puts him into like the the money box that she locks so that way Al can't take him, and then Al makes a distraction, and then he picks the lock and like takes Woody and runs. And Buzz is jumping out and like chasing after him. And during the time frame, Buzz sees the license plate. So we've got two things going on at the same time. We've got, of course, Buzz and the rest of the toys trying to figure out what happened to Woody. And then, of course, we have, Woody being taken to where Al lives, which is this big, kind of skyscraper type building where he has like this penthouse apartment and everything. And what ends up happening is, that's where Woody went. So what happens is, Buzz works on trying to figure out, like, he saw something on the license plate and he's trying to figure out like where he'd seen the guy before, and via stuff like the rest of the toys are trying to figure out like crime scene of what happened, of course, of like who took Woody. And Buzz figures out that it was, like it said, Al's Toy Barn on the side of on the license plate, and then he uses that to like, oh, he's the guy from Al's Toy Barn, and like they look him up on they like go through like find the commercial that's Al's Toy Barn, and they mark off where it is on like the Etch-a-Sketch. And I got like the Etch-a-Sketch that like draws out the entire map of like how to get there. And then it's Buzz kind of like rallies the troops, and it's Buzz, Slink, Rex, Ham, and Mr. Potato Head that go off on this quest to go to try to get Woody back, of course. And it's like Mrs. Potato Head is like packing, it's like, I packed you an extra pair of shoes and your angry eyes just in case, which is just funny. So we get like funny stuff there, and different those funny things, and like they all head off. And during this time frame, Woody has been at Al's apartment, and he ends up thinking that he's like basically he has been kidnapped. By a technicality, he's been stolen. And he ends up in the building, and he is in Al's penthouse, and he ends up meeting these other toys. One is this cowgirl Jessie, the other one is Bullseye, who is this horse, and there is also Stinky Pete the Prospector, who is an unsold toy still in his official box. And Jessie, we learn some of their backstory, of course, but we find out that Woody is actually this final piece that Al needs for this collection of things. And of course, from the show, where Woody was this main character of the show was called Woody's Roundup, and it was made by this company called Cowboy Crunchies that was like the cereal company. And Woody's Roundup, and like Woody and Jessie and Bullseye and Stinky Pete are all like characters on the show. And in the show they're all played by puppets, but these are just now like, these were like the merchandise that they made for the show. And actually, if you look up online, you can like on YouTube, if you look up like history of like Woody and Toy Story or something like that, I think you can find like some really good videos that go into a lot more of a backstory of like Woody and Woody's Roundup, and like Al and like Andy's father, and like they're really good for the people that have done those things. They're really good for those. They're really interesting in regards to like that backstory, far better than I could do. But what we see is that, there's all this other merchandise, and Woody like looks at all this stuff, and he's just like so amazed by this because he had no idea that he was this toy, and they're like, oh my god, you don't know who you are, type of a thing. And unfortunately, during the process of some of this interaction, Woody's arm ends up getting fully ripped off. There's like the string gets caught, and it ends up getting like fully unseamed, and his arm falls off, which of course, I mean, like, that happened to Buzz in the first movie. His arm kind of got popped off and everything in the first movie while they were at Sid's house, and the other toys fixed him. And now of course it's just like a seam that needs to be sewn up is a little bit different than a action figure's arm that can be easily pop back into place. So there's a bit of a difference there. because like Buzz's ones are a little bit more designed to be able to be, fixed a little bit easier to a degree. And what ends up happening is, of course, um, uh, uh, what ends up happening is that night, Woody ends up sneaking out of this, like he's in like this glass case. Um, and he gets, he sneaks out and he tries to get his arm, because his intention is to get his arm and then leave to get back home to Andy, because of course Andy is his kid and everything. And there's of course the running thing that it's like all of Andy's toys have Andy written on the bottom of them. Woody has a, Buzz has it, the toys have, Andy on the bottom, which is adorable. I never really did that with my toys, but I just think that that's adorable anyway. And, but, Woody is trying to figure out, he tries to get his arm, tries to get out, but, that doesn't happen. Al wakes up and, because the TV turns on and he gets, taken away. And then, or he gets, Woody's back in the case, of course, hiding at that point in time in the case with, there's like Jesse, and he thinks that Jesse turned on the TV to wake Al up. And the next day, we end up having this time frame where there's this guy that comes in as the repairman, and he's, of course, Gene from, Gene's game, who's, of course, the old man who plays chess in one of the Pixar shorts, and he shows up and he is there to, he's like this toy repairman cleaner type thing. And he, goes through and like, he's like, the scene is actually quite satisfying, except for one part. And it's like, it's very satisfying watching as he takes great care in just like the amount of detail that he pays in regards to like, cleaning Woody and like, fixing the paint on his cheeks and like fixing like the paint on his head and, different things like that. Like he even like polishes Woody's boots and like cleans out Woody's ears and like all this other stuff that he does throughout the course of the scene, that it's really adorable. The one part that of course we as the viewers are not supposed to like is when he paints over the name Andy on, Woody's boot. Because, that's the part where it's just like everything else is fine, and like, he sews up, Woody's arm, so his arm's exactly the way it's supposed to be and everything. And he looks perfect. He looks like brand spanking new. It's just, painted over Andy. That's the problem. So of course, that's the way that it is. And he heads off, and Woody is just like, he's like, I look so, brand new and everything. And, Al takes all these pictures of like Woody and Bullseye and Jesse and Stinky Pete and, like all these different, by a bunch of the other merchandise from the show. And what ends up happening is, then he heads off to go over literally across the street is where Al's toy barn is. So he like heads across the street, complaining about like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go into work on a Saturday type of a thing. And like, during this time frame, my mom's phone just dinged somewhere in the house. During this time, Buzz and his group of, Ham, Slinky, Rex, and Potato Head have been, working their way towards Al's toy barn, and like Buzz at one point has to give this, big speech over the fact that, like rallies the troops. It's just like, when Sid had me strapped to a rocket, did Woody give up? No. When you tossed him out of the back of that moving van, did he give up? No. So it's just like that funny thing, and it's like they get to where Al's toy barn is. The funny thing is like they first end up on the street, like literally right in front of the building where of course Woody actually is, and then they have to go across the street, so they end up causing a bunch of problems because they get like inside of these the orange traffic cones, and they like move across the street with the traffic cones. And just cause like major accident that happens. I don't think anyone actually gets hurt, but there's like a big accident that happens and blocks the road, and they get inside. And they end up, getting their way into Al's toy barn, and they end up like searching around trying to figure out where Woody is, and like Buzz kind of ends up finding like the Buzz Lightyear aisle, which is full, just like chock full of all of the Buzz Lightyears as far as the eye can see. Like, all in the same packaging that Buzz was in when Andy got him and everything, all that. And then there's one who is not in the packaging, who is like this display model that has like this like utility belt type of a thing that Buzz tries to get that, but the other one ends up like attacking Buzz and trapping him in his case, and like, trapping him in like a one of the boxes that the Buzz Lightyears come in, and so then the fake Buzz, or well, not the fake Buzz, but the Buzz with the belt, still of course thinks that he's the actual Buzz Lightyear, thinks they're all, whatever, they're on the mission or whatever. He's like the same mindset that like Buzz was in the first movie. And this Buzz, of course, ends up going off, and he ends up, finding Ham and Slink and Rex has found this guidebook for the video game. And we all know how guidebooks work. And he's found this guidebook, so it's like that's why Buzz sticks around with them. And it's like, oh, we have to find Woody and everything, and like, they're like driving around, and they end up finding all these Barbies, and like one of them, who is tour guide Barbie, gets into the car with them. I could have brought a Barbie. I still have some Barbies, or like in a box somewhere, but I still have them. I don't know why I still have them, but I do. Probably I just haven't had a reason to get rid of them yet, or give them to anyone yet. But so she's like driving them around, and she's like has like some sass to her, which I kind of like that they give her a little bit of sass. And like they drive around, and she's like giving like all these different facts about a bunch of the different like toys that are inside of the store, inside of the toy barn, which is kind of interesting. But like they cause more trouble, and then they end up finally in the office where Al is, and Al has come in, and he's like faxing all of these pictures over to Japan, because the prospect is, or his intention is, to sell Woody and Jesse and Bullseye and Stinky Pete and all of the merchandise to this museum in Japan, where they will then be put on display, along with like I guess all of the episodes of Woody's Roundup or something like that, which Woody spent part of the day watching. And his, he wants, he's watched all these episodes, and like he's like, there's like right before the end of the series, like there was like one episode that like never got aired, or like it never got finished because like the company got shut down because as Sticky Pete puts it, 2 words, Sputnik, as in the Russian spacecraft that went up. And at that point, it's like kids don't care about cowboys anymore. They care about, astronauts and cosmonauts and spacemen and everything like that. And that's where they're interested. So it's literally kind of like this plan, the fact of, which is what actually happened in real life, is that, Woody went from, in the context of the story is, Woody went from being this, really popular thing to he's like not worth very much anymore unless like you have all this stuff and like all that, all those types of things. And it was all of the spacemen stuff came in, which is kind of what happened to like Woody in the first movie, where it's like when Buzz came in, he thought that he was being replaced. He wasn't, but he felt like that. So Al is there, and he's like faxing all of these different pictures over to Japan. And like, getting, he's like going to get a bunch of money for this. So his intention is, of course, to get a bunch of money for all of the stuff. And then he can then like retire, I'm assuming, is his intention. And, fake Buzz, well, Ultra Belt Buzz, whatever he's called. I don't remember. And the others like sneak into Al's bag, and then they end up having to like sneak into the building. And like Buzz, the actual Buzz, manages to like get out of his, the box that he got put in, and he manages to escape, and he ends up like chasing after them. And unfortunately, chasing Buzz is a, I was about to say Darth Vader toy. There's a Darth Vader toy. No, this is before Disney owned Star Wars. But there's a Evil Emperor Zurg toy that's chasing him, of course, which of course I think Zurg is kind of based off of Darth Vader anyway, and there's combination of Darth Vader and Palpatine anyway, which is not surprising. Although admittedly a Toy Story Star Wars crossover would be kind of funny. That would be funny. I don't think Disney's done that unless I've completely missed that, but that would be funny if they did. But what we end up kind of seeing is the rest of, the Woody's Friends toys and the fake and the other Buzz, they're trying to sneak into the building, And the fake Buzz thinks that this is it's basically the same thing as like the video game, like his, trying to get to Zurg and everything like that. So it's like, they're trying to sneak through the elevator and everything. And like he of course thinks that he's still the real Buzz Lightyear, thinks that he's like has all of these powers and everything, which is not funny because it ends up causing a lot of problems while they're trying to get through to the elevator, or get through the elevator shaft, because they have to climb through the elevator shaft. And while this is going on, Woody was actually trying to decide. Woody kept trying to leave, but he keeps getting kind of like stopped. And now the dog's barking in the background. Sorry, but like Woody keeps getting stopped, and what happens is Jesse and him have this big kind of fight. And she's just like, yeah, go back to your Andy. I'm sure he's a great kid, all that type of thing. And Stinky Pete convinces Woody to go and like at least have like leave on amicable terms with Jesse. So that's what Woody does. He goes and he talks to Jesse, and he finds out that she had once had an owner, and her owner's name was Emily, and that she had loved all the cowgirl stuff and everything like that, and loved Jesse, and had dog. But what had happened was Jessie felt like she got replaced as Emily grew up, and Emily ended up getting much more into, more girly things, nail polish, makeup, different things like that. Jessie felt like she was replaced. And for years, she just kind of waited for, Emily to find her again. And when Emily did find her, like under her bed, Emily just basically like gathered her up with a bunch of other stuff and took her and like donated her to a charity along with like all this other stuff that she had. And it's to be assumed that's like that's where like Al got a hold of Jesse, because we don't know how long it was that Jesse was there or anything like that. We don't exactly know, because we never get an answer to that. Although there is the theory, and I can subscribe to the theory that like Emily, Jesse's owner, was Andy's mom, or is Andy's mom. And that because like, and part of the thing is that like the cowboy hat that Andy has does not look like Woody's hat, it looks like Jesse's hat. So there's like that whole theory there, which I'm like, I can agree with that theory. There's a few other theories that go into Toy Story that I can subscribe to, that I really like. In regards to just like the characters themselves, or like background of the characters. But what ends up happening is, Woody kind of ends up having this moment where like, Stinky Pete kind of talks to him, and like Woody ends up kind of doubting. He basically ends up doubting how much Andy cares about him, because it's just like, yeah, his arm got ripped, and like Andy didn't take him to camp. But it's like Andy didn't take him to camp because he didn't want Woody to get any more damage than he was at that moment. And then, that was Andy's intention. It didn't mean that he didn't care, that, he was sad that Woody got hurt, of course. But he, that Woody got, torn and everything. But he just, they didn't have the time to fix him at that point in time. And I, it's like trying to sew something while you're in a moving car is not easy. So I can kind of understand why, Woody, why Andy wouldn't want to take Woody and try to have to like fix him in the car. And it's just, Stinky Pete kind of like preys on this concept that's a little bit still of like similar insecurity that like Woody had in the first movie, where he's like, oh, well, how, Andy's just going to get older. Is he going to take you to college with him? His honeymoon, when he moves out of his house, how, is Andy going to take you with him? Which of course ends up later on in like Toy Story 3, we get like callbacks to that, of course, but that's not at the moment. And as I said, I'm doing these in order of when they were released, not like Toy Story 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Cars 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 blah. It's like they're in order of when they were released, like I did with the Disney movies for the most part. But one of the other things that we see is that Andy, or that but Woody, of course, ends up making the decision to stay. And it's like kind of like, you can be adored by children for generations, within, at the museum and everything. So like Woody's all ready for that. And, like they're all ready to go. And, Al's like packed up everything else. So that way they're all, everything's all packed up, all the merchandise and everything. And he's like, trying to get everything planned to get shipped out to, Japan that night. So he can be on the next flight and everything to get to Japan and everything. And during this, of course, when this happens, Buzz, fake Buzz, and the rest of them finally get into, via, elevator shaft into the ventilation ducts, find their way to, where Woody is. And they initially think that Woody is like being held hostage and tortured, and then they break in and, they try to save him and get out. And then the real Buzz shows up because he like followed them. And the real Buzz shows up and he's like, stop. And they're just like, Buzz? Two of them. And like basically what Buzz ends up doing is he pulls kind of like what Woody did to him in the first movie, where like, the fake Buzz, the Ultra Buzz with the belt, who like has had his helmet up the entire time, of course, is, he accuses the other Buzz of like being an imposter or a clone made by Zurg and blah 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 blah. And Buzz just walks over and like pushes the button that makes the helmet come back. So the other Buzz is just like like, like he can't breathe type of moment. That moment there where he's like gasping for breath, and like Woody, Ham, and Rex and Slake are just like deadpan as they look at the other Buzz, like, and then the real Buzz like holds up his foot that says Andy on the bottom, which is really the only thing he had to do. He didn't have to push the button, but he wanted to, which I don't blame him. Shows his foot. Buzz, oh good, it's really you. Oh good, Woody, you're safe. I see you got your arm fixed. Yeah, type, that moment. And what ends up happening is, we have the moment where like the two Buzzes kind of end up having a conversation where like, I think it's Andy's Buzz says something along the lines, mentions sometimes of, I guess, like protocol code. And the other Buzz is just like, oh my God, then he's, like looks at Woody, oh, Your Majesty. It's like, what protocol code was this? I'm like, I don't know, but it was funny. And during that time frame, Buzz and Woody actually end up kind of having an argument because, like, Woody explains to them, it's like, oh yeah, it's like these are, Jesse and Bullseye and Stinky Pete, blah 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 blah. I miss it. There was all this merchandise, there was like all this fun stuff, and like I was on a yo-yo, I was a yo-yo, and like, but Ham is, or like the potato head is off to the side. Was it's just like Woody is not in the right headspace at this point in time. And, he's just, Woody is like, I'm going to go to Japan. I'm going to go be part of this exhibit and everything. And it was great. And I wish you guys could have seen all this stuff. And, so we get that moment. But we also see that, Buzz is basically trying to convince Woody that, no, your place is with Andy because this is what you taught me. That a toy's purpose is to be loved by a child. And, he heads off, Woody is not going to go with them. So the other, real Buzz and the other toys leave. And, like, they're all sad that Woody's not coming with them. And they, head off through the ventilation duct and then, like, go back down with the elevator and get back to, head back to Andy's because he's going to be home that, very late that night or very early the next morning, one of the two. And what ends up happening is, at that point, like the TV gets turned on and Woody goes over and he watches it, and it's, it's like, I guess it's like something from like the last episode or one of the last episodes. And it's, Woody, the character, Woody the puppet, like playing the guitar, and he's singing, the You've Got a Friend in Me song. And like, so Woody is watching that, and then like Buzz hears it like within the ventilation duct. And this is when Woody finally remembers, like he looks down at his foot and, on his boot, and he like scrapes away like where the new paint is and sees Andy written underneath it. And he's just like, he's like, yeah, my place is with Andy for however long that'll be. Yeah, Andy is going to grow up, but I wouldn't miss a minute of it. And he, that's when he's, decides that he's going to go, but and he like tries to convince Jesse and Bullseye and Stinky Pete to come with him because he's just like, just, we can go with this, and Andy will play with all of us and everything. And like, I don't remember if this is when Woody says it, but he says to Jesse, it's like, Andy has a little sister, says, has a, I was gonna say Bonnie, that's wrong, has, Molly. Um, and, Jesse's like, why didn't you say that before? type of thing. So she's like excited, and like Bullseye's ready to go. But Stinky Pete ends up stopping them and like revealing that, oh, he's been able to leave his box for a long time. And Stinky Pete has this whole thing where he's just like, I tried to be a nice guy. I tried to, let things go okay. I tried to be gentle, but you refused to listen. And it's like he's the one that turned on the TV that like woke up, Al, and he's caused problems for Woody at the moment. Tried to make Woody and Jesse fight and everything, and like cause these problems. And at that point in time, that's when Al shows back up, and like they all have to get packed up into this green kind of like suitcase type thing that is like designed to like hold the toys so they don't get any damaged or anything like that. Barking dog. So Al's leaving, so Buzz and the rest of the group, including the new fake Ultra Buzz, whatever, heads off. They're all heading off to try to chase down Al, and like they're going through the elevator, and this is when Zurg pops up. And what ends up happening is, of course, Zurg and the new Buzz end up like having like this fight in the elevator that's like very similar to like the fight that's in the video game. And then they do the they do the whole joke where like Zurg is just like Zurg does a moment, it's like Buzz is like, you killed my father. No, I am your father. No. It's like Star Wars reference, anyone, of course, which is the entire point, is that it's supposed to be a Star Wars reference long before Disney owned Star Wars, but still funny. And like Zurg ends up getting like knocked off the elevator by Rex, and Buzz is just like, no, father. the new Buzz. And like they get down, and like they get out of the the elevator lands, and like they end up getting out of out of the elevator too, and like they almost got Woody out of the thing, but that didn't work. It's like Prospector stopped them, and the fake Buzz ends up staying with like the other like Zurg survives the fall, I guess, and like him and Buzz like stay just like, I'm gonna play some ball with my dad, which is just funny. So then it's like Al gets in his car, and he's gonna head to the of course, head to the airport. So it's just like, well, we have to follow him. And I'm just like, look over, Pizza Planet truck. And they get into the delivery truck, and like they get it going and everything. Like Buzz is gonna drive, like everybody's like has a different thing that they're supposed to do. And like hanging from the river mirror are the 3 aliens, visitors from the outside world. So it's like the aliens like help, and at one point like the aliens almost get like blown out of the window, but like Ham, or like I was gonna say Ham, Mr. Potato Head saves them. And like they get to the airport, like they make their way into the airport with like the aliens helping them, because like he say to Mr. Potato Head, you have saved our lives, we are eternally grateful. That moment, which is just funny. And what ends up happening is they make their way into the airport, and they follow the they're like hiding in, I think they're hiding in like a dog kennel cage, and like they make their way through, and like they follow where like Woody's case went. So they're like following the case, and like they find one case that is not the right case, but Buzz gets to the right case, and they end up like getting Woody and Bullseye out, and then they end up like trapping Stinky Pete and like dropping him in like a little girl's backpack. And so he gets his just desserts. And his is like, he gets in this backpack, he gets put in this backpack that has this that belongs to this like little girl. And she like has her Barbie, and the Barbie's just like, oh, you'll love whatever the girl's name is. She's an artist, and she's got like all these like drawings and like stickers and like all this stuff on like one side of her face, and Pete's just like, no. But of course, because we have to have a dramatic ending of the movie, that at this point in time, Jesse is still trapped in the case. So they're trying to get to the case, and the case ends up on the airplane. And Woody like followed it on, or Woody followed it onto the airplane. Well, Buzz and Bullseye are like running next to it, and like Woody gets Jesse out of there, and like we find out throughout the course of the movie, we found out like Jesse kind of has like claustrophobia, which I don't blame her in the fact that she mentions like I've been, I can't go back into storage again because she's been in storage too long, and it's very hard on her. And I mean, like I can understand that. I mean, like from the I can understand that from the perspective in this world that toys come to life and everything. Which I mean, it's not like we know whether or not toys actually come to life. For all we know, we don't know, but still. But Buzz, Woody gets to Jesse, and they end up, he gets to her, but like the plane starts to, drive away, and they end up having to like escape out of there's like a hatch that I guess is right over by where one of the wheels is, so they climb out onto the wheels, and they're like trying to get out, and like during this time frame, part of Woody's like stitching rips again, and like they have this whole moment where it's like Woody's hat flies off, but Buzz is there, and he's like, what's a cowboy without his hat, like has the hat, saves the hat, of course, because Buzz and Bullseye are awesome, and because they are. And like what we end up seeing is, of course, Buzz and Jesse basically have like this kind of leap of faith moment, because like Jesse doesn't know, though they don't know how Woody's roundup was supposed to end. And what Woody is basically like, well, we'll find out together, because he uses his like his drawstring as like a lasso, and like they end up getting off of the swinging under the wheel and like getting away, and like Buzz is there, and like him and Bullseye catch them, and they're safe, and like the plane like flies over the top of them, which is just funny. And it's just like, let's go home. Yes, let's go home. So they get back to Andy's house, and there's the whole question of how did they get here? And it's they literally basically stole the kind of truck thing that they use to like move the luggage around in airports. They stole that and drove it home, which is just funny in and of itself, because it's like, now there's a Pizza Planet worker out there that's just like, where the heck did my truck go? And now there's like a bunch of like the airport people going, where did our thing go? And then the people that live across the street from Andy are just like, why is this here? Type of thing. And of course, the next morning or late that night or whatever, when Andy gets home, is of course, all the toys are there on the bed. Woody's still got his little bit of a rip, but Jesse and Bullseye are there, and like the new 3 aliens. And Andy ends up like fixing his seam and everything, fixing Woody's seam and everything, which is just fun. So he's all happy now and everything. Love Woody. And Jesse and Bullseye have Andy written on their feet and everything, so that's nice. Because they're now part of the family. And what ends up happening is like Mr. Potato Head ends up introducing the aliens to his wife, and she's like, he saved our lives, we are eternally grateful. You saved their lives? Oh my god, let's adopt them. Aliens, daddy. Just like, go away type thing. And that's just adorable in and of itself. And what we see, of course, is Buzz and Bo Peep are like reunited for that one. And there's a moment where Buzz tries to like compliment Jessie, say that she's very brave and everything. And it's just funny, because it's like because like Woody and Bo are, of course, Woody and Bo Peep, and then of course now it's like Jessie and Buzz are kind of at that moment. And like this flirting moment, and like Buster needs to get out of the room, so Jessie basically ends up like kind of pulling a Buzz, where she like rolls around on like the Hot Wheels track and like jumps up and like opens the door and like lets Buster out, and Buzz is just standing there and his wings pop out and he's just like, oh my god, I'm in love moment, which is adorable. So that's just fun. And we see that crime does not pay for Al, of course, because they see a commercial for him for Al's Toy Barn, and he's just like, he's still in his chicken suit, but he's like crying, and he's just like, everything at the store is a buck, buck, buck. He's like crying. Just funny. It's just like, well, his stuff wasn't there. The merchandise is there, but none of the none of the dolls were there. So yeah, stuck it there, buddy. You're kind of stuck now. Um, so that's the whole point of that. And what we end up seeing is, of course, Wheezy is there, and Wheezy's fine. He got like a new squeaker, and he can, he ends up singing, and like he sings, "You've got a friend in me." So they're just like, Frank Sinatra style type singing of it and everything. Like there's like Barbies dancing in the background, and like, Buzz and Bo, and Woody and Bo and Buzz and Jesse are, of course, there watching, and everybody's happy now. Everybody's happy where they need to be. And there's a moment where at the end of it, Woody is like looking out the window at where Andy and his mom and Molly are, and Buzz makes the comment of, are you worried about Andy growing up too fast and everything?" And Buzz and Woody goes, "A little bit, but I know that whenever it is time for Andy to no longer need us, you know, I'll still have you. I'll still have Buzz Lightyear to keep me company for infinity and beyond," which is just adorable because it shows even further, even more how far their friendship has come since the original movie. And of course, throughout 3 and 4, we see more and more of that when it comes to their relationship. But I'll go into that when I get to those movies, obviously, with the reviews, not really delving into them now. Um, of course, for the purposes of voice, we still have Tom Hanks as Woody. We still have Tim Allen, of course, as Buzz Lightyear. And then, of course, Ultra Buzz Lightyear, who's the other one. We have Joan Cusack as Jessie. We have Kelsey Grammer as the prospector Stinky Pete. We have Wallace Shawn as Rex. We have Jim Varney as Slinky Dog. We, of course, have John Ratzenberger as Ham. We have Wayne McKnight as Al McWiggins, who is, the bad guy. We have Annie Potts as Bo Peep. We have Don Rickles as Mr. Potato Head. We have Estelle Harris as Mrs. Potato Head. Frank Welker is both Bullseye and Buster. Just go look up Frank Welker. I've talked about him before. Just anything, like any Disney animal sidekick from like the 90s and into the early 2000s is most likely Frank Welker. Yeah. Um, Funny. Um, we have John Morris, John Morris as Andy. We have a guy that plays Sarge. John Ramp. Okay, so I forgot to mention this. At the end of the movie, just like they did with the Bugs Life, there are bloopers at the end of the movie. And it's, like bloopers of the characters themselves. So it's like Woody messing up or Buzz messing up or like different things like that. And it's just adorable. And like Flick and Heimlich from A Bug's Life are in it at the end of it as like like they're having fun. And the guy that voices Flick, or guy that voices Wheezy, is also the same guy that voiced Heimlich the caterpillar in A Bug's Life. John Ramp, who was actually a story developer at Pixar for a long time, and unfortunately, I think he passed away shortly before. I want to say before Toy Story 3 came out, but he passed away at one point. And on the DVD that I have for Toy Story 2, they have like a memorial to him, because he was also the voice of like Mater in Cars, and a few other characters that popped up throughout Pixar, and even in some Disney stuff where he ended up working, because he would do like these fun character voices for like the scratch audio for like the demos for the movies when they would go through and do like storyboards for the shows. And then the singing voice of Wheezy is Robert Goulet, which is just funny. Jody Benson is Barbie, so Jody Benson is Ariel, of course. Laurie Metcalf is, of course, the mom. Not really too much else there. But it's like, so we have, those are, basically the returning voices plus the couple of new ones here and there. And so I mentioned this at the beginning. So there is a story with Toy Story that is, at one point when they were not too far from the end of getting the film done, all of Toy Story 2 got deleted out of the system. It's like someone entered a wrong code in a wrong area and it just deleted everything. And everybody is just like, oh no, we are so screwed type of moment. And which, admittedly, yeah, you kind of are at that point. But what ended up happening was one of the ladies who worked on the movie, who I don't remember exactly what her job was, but she was like one of the animation directors or something like that. And she was a supervising technical director at the time. And she had two boys, and what she had done was, like, so she could still be around her kids. She had set it up so she could kind of work from home, which is of course something that we're very familiar with now, but at the time, it wasn't as common of a thing. So what she had remembered is that, oh well, she still had like this 2 week or 3 week old backup of the movie at home. So it's like it's not completely lost, but we'll still have to do some fixes on it, but it's not completely lost. And what they ended up doing was, like, her and one of the other guys ended up driving to her house, taking the computer, wrapping it in towels, buckling it into the back seat of the car to keep it safe, and then drove back to Pixar, like very carefully back to Pixar. And then they had like guys come out and like very carefully carry it in like those pedestals that like you carry a king on and everything like that. Like carry them into the thing, like very carefully look at everything and see what's there. They ended up chucking a large amount of the movie because it wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. And they ended up, like, they've stated it was like that was actually kind of a blessing in disguise for what happened. Like the characters were still there, but I think they ended up improving upon the story in and of itself and everything. Because the movie is only like I think it's like about an hour and a half, maybe hour and 40 minutes tops, a little bit less than that, somewhere in that range. So it's not an extremely long movie in all honesty, but there's still a lot that they pack in there. So it's just like, basically, for all intents and purposes, Toy Story 2 was saved over the fact of the concept of letting basically women have maternity leave and letting them be able to be at home or work from home, which, we've seen with Raya and the Last Dragon, with Luca, with Encanto, Encanto, whatever, with those ones, the last several Disney and Pixar movies that have come out that were made a large amount from people working at home. It shows you that it doesn't really diminish the quality of the movies. It just shows you that having the ability to do that can be a very good thing. So that's just kind of something that they show there that I think is like, that kind of paid off in the end, and hopefully now they're just a little bit more careful when it comes to where they type in certain codes. So yeah, so they have that. And then the other thing that I wanted to tack onto here was on the first one for the original Toy Story movie, I talked about Toy Story, the section that is in Kingdom Hearts. So for this one, I was going to talk about Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, the animated show that they had that was in 2000. Now, the initial one is they had this direct-to-video movie that was Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, The Adventure Begins, which is where we are introduced to Buzz Lightyear. And we are introduced to the concept of Star Command, and so it's basically like the introduction of this character from, the Buzz Lightyear that's in Toy Story. This is like kind of the character that he's based on, type of a thing. And we're introduced to Buzz along with several of the other characters. We're introduced to the evil Emperor Zurg, of course, and several other different characters, like his crew specifically. One of them, his second in command, is a woman who is named Princess Mira Nova, and she is this kind of princess from this alien planet that her father does not approve of her working for Star Command, but this is what she wants to do. And then there is Buster Sinclair Munchapper, I think is his name. I think I mispronounced his last name, but he was this former janitor at Star Command that had like memorized like all the code books and everything like that. And he really wanted to be a member of Star Command, but he, never really got the chance until he like Buzz knew who he was, and like Buzz was like always nice to him and everything like that. But Buster finally got the chance to prove himself, so then he's made one of the full members of Star Command, and then the other one is this robot whose name is XR, and he is like this little robot that like helps them and everything, and he's got like attitude, if I remember correctly, but it's been a while since I've um um the robot has like attitude at times, and like there's like a chief of Star Command, and as I said, Zurg is there, and there's all these other different villains that he has to interact with, and so there's like all these other different things, and for some reason I think there was like maybe an episode where like maybe there was like literally a space cowboy that was Woody that was in the show, but I don't remember if that was true or not. I do know that Tim Allen voiced Buzz for the initial one, for the directed video movie that they did. And then I think subsequently all the different series episodes were him being voiced by, I want to say Patrick Warburton, who is, of course, the same guy that plays Kronk in The Emperor's New Groove. I believe that is correct. I think that was the actor that they had come in to voice him for the TV series. And as I mentioned, in the original Toy Story video, there's also going to be the feature-length Buzz Lightyear movie that they're going to be having where he is played by Chris Evans. And at whatever point in time that is out, I will probably review that within the lineup of the different Pixar movies when I get to it. Because I do not remember when it's supposed to be out, but I think it is supposed to be within the next couple of months, if I remember. Like, I think it's supposed to come out like this summer, but I could be wrong. So that's what I have here. The next one, I believe the next one is supposed to be, I want to say Monsters Inc. is the next one. So then, I'll do that one. I think the annoying thing is for the way that I have these scheduled to go out, or scheduled for when I started recording them and when they'll be going out. If I had started to release them 1 week earlier, which I don't think I'm going to be adjusting anything at this point in time, if I timed it out correctly, I could have had WALL-E go out on Earth Day / my birthday. And that would have been very appropriate, but that's not happening, unfortunately. So that's what we have there. I thank you very much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the video, and just comment some of your favorite memories that you have when it comes to Toy Story. So thank you for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.
Calling Buzz Lightyear, the galaxy's greatest hero. Skilled, courageous, and ever vigilant. Leaping into action, Buzz Lightyear hurtles to the rescue. His ongoing mission to protect the universe from the dark forces of evil. These are the adventures of Buzz Lightyear of Star Command.